Good morning. Good to see you here this morning. I am so happy to be here on such a gorgeous, beautiful summer day. Finally, right? Finally? Yeah, okay. I want to say that my name is Inge Whittemore, and I'm on the teaching team here at Cornerstone, and I'm here today replacing Alex because Alex is over at the 84th Street campus filling in for Ken as he continues with his treatments for his cancer. He has a couple more weeks left of this radiation treatment, and this is the tough time, y'all. So this is the time for us to get tough with our prayers for Ken. And if you would reach out to him through the link that's in our website or on the email that was sent to you this week, that would be great. He loves to hear from you all. He's seen all of what we've sent and appreciates it so much. So I encourage you for that. If you don't know me very well, which probably is a few of you, I am a retired United Methodist pastor. And that was my second career. I spent 38 years in the corporate world. I was a banker for a bank here in the West Michigan area, and it was a pretty big bank, as banks go. It wasn't one of those quadrillion-dollar humongous banks, but it was a pretty good-sized bank. And I worked several different positions while I worked for that bank over those years, and I had a modicum of success there, especially in the 90s and the 2000s when the economy was just chugging along and small businesses were really doing well, because that was my specialty. Now, mind you that the company that I worked for had 12,000 employees, so I was one very small little fish in a very big fishbowl. But I made my name here in the neighborhood in the West Michigan region. And then what happens with big corporations is there came a time for a new CEO and chairman of the board. And oh man, was that ever nerve-wracking and scary, because leadership in corporations and elsewhere, leadership sets the tone. It sets how it's going to be where you work, and that can be a little bit frightening. Things were going to change, and they did. Some of it was good, and some of it wasn't so great. This new CEO seemed very remote. He was very far away, lived in Dallas, Texas, where the headquarters was, and he seemed stern and exacting. We got these little emails and these little newsletters with his picture on it, and he looked like a pretty stern person. And so I was intimidated by him. And then there comes that day when the CEO decides to make an appearance in West Michigan to an event that we were having. And I got chosen to sit at his table. I was dismayed, actually. I didn't really want to do this, And he's a big guy, big hunyuk up in the sky, and I'm just really worried. And he flies into Grand Rapids in the corporate jet with his entourage of department heads, and as you can imagine, his security detail also. And they all show up at the hotel there, and there's all these tables there. And I had known about this, and so I had gotten with some of my peers and said, give me some witty things to say about business that he'll think you're really smart. I could really use that, man. And, I was just really nervous. The day came, I was dressed in my finest business suit with my pizza-looking shoes with the high heels, and I got there and I went up to the tables and I found my little place card with my name on it, and lo and behold, I'm sitting right next to him. So after he made the opening remarks to all the people, he came down and sat down at the table with us. And I turned to him and introduced myself. And I said, nice to meet you, Mr. Babb. And he smiled, a really genuinely sweet smile, and said, call me Ralph. He didn't ask me a thing about work. He asked me, so do you live around here? Do you have kids? How many kids do you have? What do they do? By the way, I have 2 kids. They play soccer, and I'm missing one of their games while I'm here, making me sad. And he spoke to all the people at the table and asked about themselves, not about work, not a word about what have we done for the company lately. It was fascinating. My eyes were opened because, I don't claim to know this man, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't remember this event at all. He doesn't know me from Adam. But you see, I still remember that interaction all these years later because he was somebody that I didn't assume to be truly human, a nice person. I had set something in my mind about who he would be. He was genuinely kind and thoughtful. It made me happy to work where I was working. And it taught me a lot about how I should be real with the people who worked for me. That I should build relationships with my coworkers and with the people that work there. And then if we do all that, I thought to myself, we would all benefit. Sadly, it's so strange and refreshing to meet someone like that, right? It shouldn't be. It's not supposed to be a rare thing. But we've all had the opposite situation, right? You look at somebody in the news or you look at somebody in social media and you really admire them, and then there's some scandal. Something that makes you think, well, they weren't what they said they were. That facade wasn't real. Maybe it's a coworker that you have that talks all about leading Bible studies on Sunday morning, but then they're all about leading the gospel of the office gossip on Mondays through Fridays. Truth is that we live in a time where what's seen, your list of followers, the filters that you put out, the facades that we present, our self-branding, our self-marketing, all that supposedly is supposed to matter a lot, but God is more concerned about what you are in the unseen pieces of you. God is more interested in our character when no one is watching. Or in Daniel's case, when everyone is watching, and watching just to catch him slipping up. Today we're diving into Daniel, the chapter 6, which is the story of Daniel in the lion's den. But we're not talking about the miracle of the lions' mouths being kept shut. We're going to look at a kind of life that Daniel led, the kind of life he led that led up to this miracle. And as I think you'll see, it was a life of consistency, a life of integrity and private devotion, and that led to his public influence. It's a story that will help us learn the big idea for today. Here it is. I'm going to tell you what this message is all about. Don't check out later, but this is what it's about. Who you are in private is as important as who you are in public. Who you are in private is as important as who you are in public. So let's dig in. To understand the context of the story that we're going to be reading through, as we mentioned, we talked about Daniel last week. He's living in Babylon. He's in captivity. He's been captured with a whole bunch of other Israelites, and they've been taken forcibly from their homeland, and they're living in Babylon. And while we're only a few chapters into the book of Daniel, this story is about a different king than last week's king. Last week, we learned about Nebuchadnezzar, but Daniel had actually served under 4 different kings. Nebuchadnezzar, we were introduced last week, and this king this week is King Darius. Darius was a Persian king. It was the Persians who then conquered the Babylonians who had conquered the Israelites. And there is Daniel, still there, still in the government. And here's how the story goes. Now, Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps, that's governors, by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. See, Daniel had a reputation, not for being flashy, not for being all that facade. His reputation was that he was faithful. He was faithful. And the king's men, the cabinet, apparently weren't fond of Daniel's elevated status. You know, he's an outsider. He's a low-life captive. Why is he up there? And so they were jealous. And they got vengeful. So they tried to dig up some dirt on him, but they came up empty-handed. They couldn't find anything. In today's terms, it would be like doing a deep social media dive and not finding a single scandal. But how did Daniel get this kind of a reputation? How did he become someone that even his captors, his enemies, they had to respect him? Well, before Daniel had ever faced the lion, he had already built a life that roared, excuse the pun, roared with integrity. By the time we reach Daniel in chapter 6, he's not a teenager anymore. And now when we were in Sunday school, we all thought that, we saw artwork and did stuff and we thought that Daniel was a young man, teenager, maybe in his 20s. But that's not exactly true. Daniel is likely 80 years old when this happens. Is that a surprise to you? Because it was kind of to me. He was still making waves at 80 years old as a part of the secular empire. Think about it. By this time, he had served 3 kings, 2 different empires, across decades of political changes, and not once could they find any time when he had compromised his values or convictions just to stay relevant to whoever was in power. How did he do it? How did he get this reputation? He didn't get there because he kissed up to the king. He didn't get there because he went viral. He didn't get there because he knew how to network with the hobnobs. No, he got there because his character never clocked out. It says they could find no corruption in him, which doesn't mean Daniel was perfect. It means he was consistent. He didn't cut corners. He didn't say one thing in front of the king and other things behind closed doors to other people. He was the genuine, real deal. And more than anything, it was noted he was trustworthy. He did what he said he would do. And here's the wild thing in the story. His only flaw that his enemies could find was his faith. Here's how it goes. Finally, these men said, "We'll never find any basis for charges against this man, Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of his God." That's when you know you're walking in integrity, right? That's when you know that that you are doing the right thing, when the only criticism people can make of you is that you are too faithful to God. Wouldn't it be incredible if that's what people said about you or me? Not that, that you're shady or anything, but that you're too faithful to God. Like, wow, we thought she was all talk, but I think she prays too much. We tried to cancel him, but he's annoyingly honest. We thought they were fake, but they don't compromise, even in the small things. This didn't happen to Daniel, though, overnight. He's 80 years old. His reputation wasn't built over all of those years in a moment of one crisis. It was built over decades of private devotion and daily obedience. There's scads of leadership books out now about how to do this exact thing. And as an employer, I can tell you that it's easier to teach someone how to do the job. It's a lot harder to teach them how to care about their job, or how to care about the people they work with or work for, or their clients. Truett Cathy, who owns a large fast food chain, said, "Who you are privately shapes how you will lead publicly." So when he opens new restaurants, and he does that, he doesn't go for the flashy resumes, the fast talkers. He doesn't go for that. He promotes within. He promotes employees who had quietly proven themselves to be trustworthy, even in the smallest of things. There's a story where he promoted a team member to run a new restaurant, not because of his charisma, but because over time he had shown up early, he had stayed late, he had treated his customers with respect, and he never compromised his values. It spoke loudly. The man didn't have to show off his faith. He lived it consistently. And that integrity speaks so much louder than what a resume could. That's exactly the kind of life that Daniel lived. And here's what all this shows. Your private devotion fuels your public influence. Not everybody was a fan of Daniel's. Fact is, we read here that he had some really crazed haters. And it was those guys who went fishing for trouble. Let's read on in the story. So, these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever. The royal administrators and the prefects and the satraps, the advisors, the governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or any human being during the next 30 days, except for you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed." This is the hinge of the story. We haven't even gotten to the lions yet, okay? Here it is. Daniel hears about this law, a law designed to trap him, a 30-day ban on prayer, punishable by death by lion. And what does he do? He doesn't blow up. He doesn't cry about it. He doesn't protest or complain. But he also doesn't hide. He doesn't go home and close the door and sob. No, he doesn't adjust his rhythm of life one bit. Here's what he does. Verse 10. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God just as he had done before. He prays just as he's always done. But get this. This is not the moment that creates Daniel's faith, creates his true character. This isn't it. Because it was when his faith and true character was revealed through this. It was revealed, not created. Let me say it in another way. Crisis doesn't create your character. It reveals it. Crisis doesn't create your character. It reveals it. When pressure comes, we don't rise to the level of the moment. We fall to the level of our habits. Daniel didn't need to scramble to get all spiritual and holy here. His private devotion had already shaped his public response, but that only fueled the pressure to the situation. So what happens next? Then these men, they went as a group and found Daniel praying, asking God for help. So they went to the king and they spoke to him about his royal decrees. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human being, except for you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den? So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and they threw him into the lion's den. Slammed the door. He's in there. Full disclosure, King Darius was really pretty upset about this. He was distressed about the situation. He thought highly of Daniel, obviously, and he was trying to think of a way to help him get out of this situation, but the cabinet, his governors, had manipulated him, and they had trapped him and backed him into a corner. There was no good way for King Darius to get out of this and save face, not appear weak. And so, with the king rooting for him, he sends him into the lion's den. You go. Now, you'd think that Daniel would panic here, right? Would you? Oh, don't do this to me, King Darius. I've been so good to you. Why can't you just change things? Or maybe, oh God, where are you? What kind of a meltdown could he have had? But he didn't. Because the same God who met him in the room with the windows open was going to meet him in the lion's den with all those lions. Daniel had peace in public because he had practiced it in private. So what happens? At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. And when he came near to the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? And Daniel answered, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done anything wrong before you, your majesty. I love that King Darius calls Daniel the one who serves God continually. That's how consistent Daniel was. His walk was consistent. His way was consistent. Even that a pagan king would notice Daniel's character. Wouldn't that be incredible if people who don't even share our faith could see our devotion, our faith, and our character just in the way we are? Look, she serves God even when no one's watching. He walks with God even when it's not convenient. Oh, they're the real deal even when they're not on stage in front of everybody. That's not hype. That's influence. That's not hype. That's influence, because it's not about you posting little Bible verses on your refrigerator or in your office cube. It's because you live them. Every day, you and I have a decision to make. Will we close the window and go with the flow? Or will we dive into our habits of prayer, our habits of being a person of integrity and devotion to God? Wouldn't that impact the world around us? So let me challenge you this week with this question. And I'm challenging myself too, man. How can we express our faith in this way? How can I express my faith in a way this week that others can see who my God is? How can I express my faith in a way that others can see God through me? Do you know how to do that? Do you know that the way you act while you're at school or at work can make a difference for people to know who Christ is? How you are in the drive-thru when it's taking a long time. At the grocery store when you can't find what you're looking for at Meijer's because they're rearranging things. How you are in your interactions with your friends, your coworkers, complete strangers. Can they see Christ shine through you? Because who you are in private is as important as who you are in public. The private you, the you in your own house you, the really, really real you is as important as who you are in public. Can we live privately in our homes? Can we cultivate a set of habits that we can fall on when the world meets us up with tough decisions and challenges and situations? What does that really look like in our homes, with our families, with our roommates, privately, living day to day with grace? Living day to day with doing the right thing even when it's the hard thing? Being thankful in all things even when it's going tough. Serving and helping and being genuinely willing to step in and hold the hand or feed the person or give a pat on the back or a hug of comfort. Because when those are our habits, when the tough gets going, that's where we're going to fall to. As we live outside of our homes, we are habitually going to live in grace, with integrity, with thankfulness, and kindness. We're going to fall into friendships and good communities and workplaces. We'll naturally be the forgiving kind of people who forgives people for their foibles or not being exactly like us or seeing the world in the same lens as we see it because we're so right and they're so wrong. We can still love everyone because it's going to spill over. That loving is going to spill over, and we're going to be able to see that everyone around us is an unrepeatable masterpiece created by God. I'm not saying just do better. That's not helpful. What I am saying is take a moment each day. Can we do that this week? Take a moment each day to just breathe in and pray, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Let my life shine you out into the world. Give me the courage to create habits of faith and grace and integrity and thankfulness and lovingness so that it won't be hard when I'm out in the world. That'll be my natural inclination. When we do that, we're going to be the influencers. That's why we call this series Influencers, because Daniel didn't use his faith to become an influencer. His faith simply made him a person of influence. And those around him were blessed to know him and could see God through him. Daniel was an influencer, and that's what we're called to be. Pray with me. Gracious God, we want to shine you through us. We know that the Holy Spirit dwells in us, and man, we want to make that be out there so that it's something that people will see and say, I want that kind of thing. I want to be a person of integrity and faith and love and caring. And if that person there can do it, so can I. What do they have? How is it? And so, Lord, help us each to find you inside of us that we can share to the world, so that we can influence all those around us so that they will know you. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.